Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bulbacast. I am here as your host today, TheCapsFan, and with me I have a number of Bulba Garden staff. Archaic is here.
Hello, everyone. Good to be back.
Fitzy is also here.
Hey,
Shield of Pixels is here,
hello.
or Shield does Pixels, rather. My bad. And then WyndonCalling, of course.
Hello, and just as everyone else had forgotten to do so, just to let you know that I am a part of the moderation team on the Bulb Garden forums, and I also help run the Bulb Garden social media accounts.
Ah, yes, I did forget to ask you all what you did. However, I will conclude the introductions by reintroducing someone who has not been on this cast in a very long time. Emmy, how are you today?
Well. I guess I'm back. And, I gotta say, I don't like what you did with the place.
Well, you could, if you were around more often, maybe you could add your own little design elements to it.
I know. I'm actually mostly kidding. But yeah, it's good to be back. I haven't been on a Bulbacast since... I'm trying to think. It may have been the dessert episode all that time ago. And I guess since the last cast, I kind of took over as head administrator of the forums, and I'm still sort of technically running multimedia, which is fun. But yeah, I guess since I completed the Platinum Let's Play, or my Platinum Let's Play earlier this year, I kind of felt the need to pop in over here because, well, we're finally getting the Gen 4 remakes.
Indeed, we are. And I cannot wait to begin discussing that with you all. But I will circle back to Archaic, Fitzy, and Shield and ask you guys what you all do for Bulba Garden. I'll start with you, Shield. What do you do here at Bulba Garden?
I am a moderator on the Discord server.
Always nice to have a Discord rep. Fitzy, what about you?
I am also one of the moderators of the Discord server, and I'm also part of Bulba Garden's Bulba Trade team.
Make that two Discord reps. And then Archaic, I'm fairly certain everyone knows, but why not just say it to the crowd?
I'm their boss.
Aptly said.
Yes, sir.
Well,
Which means I have to behave myself.
Yeah, no more than me.
I am me.
you knew it was coming. Anyway, with that all done, let's go into the topic of discussion for this week, which is the Pokemon Presents that we had just a few days ago on Wednesday, the 18th. This Pokemon Presents detailed a lot of game news, some of which being games that are currently out right now, and others being games that will be releasing in the near future. And let's just start off with some general thoughts from the group. How do you guys think this Pokemon Presents fared in the general Pokemon Presents scheme of things compared to other presents in the past? And how about also in comparison to Nintendo's other news reveals lately?
So I would struggle to make a direct comparison because my brain is riddled with old age. I would so I came into this presents with a bunch of slight reservations about some of the upcoming games as someone who is probably ultimately going to buy them, both Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus. A few reservations at the back of my mind still. I'm very comfortable saying that those reservations have pretty much entirely gone, and I'm really enthused, really hyped, really looking forward to what's coming.
Indeed. I would say that this presentation, by and large, delivered. There's really only one element of Legends Arceus that I'm a little uncertain on, but we'll see how it plays out. but everything else so far they've surpassed my expectations, which is
Is it the
that
Bidoofs?
doesn't normally happen when we're all on a hype train.
I would say, speaking from a Discord perspective, I think that this was a very effective release of information. In the time since I have joined the Bulba Garden Discord, first as a user and then as a moderator, I don't think I've seen as much division among the fan base since I've seen when they announced earlier this year that the Diamond and Pearl remakes were coming out. It was basically you were 100% pumped for them, or they were the death of the Pokemon franchise.
To be fair, that's
And
the same about just about everything lately.
yeah, but I
That is
think a lot, like obviously not all of the criticism has gone away, and new criticisms have popped up. But I think that this video helped to quell a lot of the fears that people had going into BDSP and Legends. We got information on how they're going to play. We got some updated graphics, and things have been less, at least within our community, things have been less hostile about the entire situation. So I'm happy about it.
Yeah, I'd say it's honestly, in my opinion, one of the strongest presents we've seen in a while. It really feels like they saw all of the criticisms with the original trailers and like explicitly showed us what, like explicitly tried to prove everything we had been thinking wrong that were going to possibly be issues. I mean, the only real nitpick, and I'm not even sure you can call it a nitpick, is like they didn't show anything new, but we kind of knew that. Like we were there for the other game news, and we weren't really expecting a whole lot in the way of other announcements.
Yeah, I mean,
As
that's definitely to be expected given that these games are not out yet and, slated for release later this year and next year. We'll probably see new things come up in the next presents, but go ahead. I mean.
As for me, I kind of live under a rock and don't even usually watch these presents or the Nintendo Directs. Of course, I mentioned that I came out of my cave just specifically for the Diamond and Pearl remakes. I'll get into my thoughts about that when we're actually discussing it. But I actually rewatched the presents like about 15 minutes before, finished watching it about 15 minutes before we went live, and have handwritten notes, which, ouch, that actually kind of hurt. But, when I was rewatching it, I pretty much just skipped the first 5 minutes, 45 seconds because, the current games are whatever. I don't really do the mobile games. And, again, I am really actually excited about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. And those of you who actually talk to me on a semi-regular basis know that I probably don't get very excited all that often. And that I'm generally a bit of a cynic, and some of that will be
No.
coming through in this in this conversation, because there are a couple of points that I found that don't look so great or what have you, but a lot of that really does come down to my personal preferences about games and things like that, and that's what it is. But I really did like the presentation. I like I like the trailer. I kind of like the breakdowns afterwards. It looked good, and I think it presented both games pretty well. And by both games, I mean Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, and Legends Arceus, which actually brings me to my first point: is I will still pronounce it Arceus, and I will probably die on that hill for whatever ungodly reason.
You are well within your right to pronounce it incorrectly.
But Dr. Gregory House pronounces it Arceus, and he is the leading authority on everything.
We'll stick a pin in that.
Indeed, we will stick a pin in that. Although I do agree with Emmy on this one. But let's go into the actual meat of the presents itself. And although yes, the first 5 minutes were not as important to us as as general viewers, I think it's still worth going into a little bit. But we're not going to spend too much time on it. So let's just start with the news they had on Pokemon Unite. The news being the mobile version is set to release on September 22nd. There will be crossplay with the Switch version, and they revealed 2 more characters or Pokemon coming to the game in Mamoswine and Sylveon. Any opinions on this? I actually have a couple if people are not willing to start.
I will dive into this. I'm quite pleased to see the news. I really like Mamoswine as a Pokemon. I think it's great for the game. Great it's coming to mobile. I am in the position though of having not played Unite for getting on to 2 weeks now, and that's as someone who was initially very much an evangelist. I wrote a fairly positive review on it. And I think that owes a lot to the fact that Unite has a couple of game modes. I prefer the 10-minute game mode, and I've got that figured out, and it's fun. And what else you got? And in some respects, I feel that the fighters are all fairly similar in many respects, especially since Eldegoss's healing and support capabilities were toned down. I'm not sure if Mamoswine and Sylveon will really shake that up. So, okay, yes, I'm still pleased to see this. I'm not necessarily sure it will hook me back into Pokemon Unite all that much.
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing Unite for a little bit every day since it came out. I haven't not put any money into it, and I don't plan to, but I have been playing it every day, and I do actually have an opinion piece I'm going to write for our news division sometime in the near future about some of my thoughts on the game, and I mean, kind of touching on some of the things you mentioned there with the amount of game modes and so forth. I guess to me it's not a surprise they're focusing on new characters first and foremost. That and presumably new holo gear because that's where they're making their money. I am a little disappointed in that, but I can at least understand it. I think it is a little silly that they're already announcing new Pokemon before they've even released Blastoise, but okay, whatever. I do wish though that they, and I think I mentioned this in the previous cast, but I think Unite. Its problem is that it's a MOBA first and a Pokemon game second, and it really should have been like a Pokemon game first, a game for Nintendo fans second, a MOBA third. Especially with, I mean, I feel like they don't consider Switch their target system, despite it coming out first on Switch. So, I mean, they're probably targeting the Chinese market, so again, understandable. But I think if they had looked at Switch as their target system and thought a bit more about the kinds of games that people who might play Unite are already playing on Switch, they could have learnt a lot from those games and thought about what they could have offered to the traditional MOBA experience and how they could have changed the traditional MOBA experience. But unfortunately, because of the way they've approached it, we've instead got Quill Fisher-Price's first MOBA.
I do, ha ha ha.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
had to
definitely
fit in a
agree.
Pokemon somewhere.
I think that the general gameplay loop at the beginning is very intriguing and enticing, and definitely incentivizes you to play more and more. Not only just because there's a lot to earn, but how to figure out what exactly it is you're earning. given all the currencies and whatnot. But focusing more directly on what they revealed in the presents, the characters, I think the introduction of Mamoswine is fun. It's not a Pokemon that is fairly, touted by the fan base as an elite Pokemon or a favorite Pokemon by many, and here it is getting its chance to shine in a spin-off that the company is trying to promote very hard. I think the evolution was quite expected, and it was just a matter of time there. But I think the Sylveon choice is a good one. Again, highlighting one of the newer evolutions, well, the newest evolution. So yeah, I think the character selection is good, but similarly to Wyndon, have kind of fallen off the radar of the game a little bit. I haven't touched it very much recently. And I feel like even something like another map in the rank battles would go a long way into keeping my interest in the game. But with that aside, I think it's probably good for us to move on to the next small piece of news.
Just before we move on, another map in ranked battles would go down well with me, but I suspect with a lot of the people who are hardcore MOBA crowd that they'd have a Fox-only Final Destination attitude towards adding new maps.
That is fair. Okay. So moving on, the presents also introduced some new information about Pokemon Cafe Mix, which is another mobile title, also on Switch, spin-off title, puzzle game, whatever you really want to call it, draw circles on your screen, win game. They've rebranded it as Pokemon Cafe Remix, and they've added new additional elements in the game, which they neglected to reveal in the presents, but apparently they're coming this fall. Anyone have anything to say?
I mean,
Go ahead.
I don't know. I feel like it has kind of already done all it can do. It was cool for the little bit I played, and then it was just kind of more of the same. And I don't know. I don't feel like there's a whole lot there for them to work with. And I mean, if you enjoy it, good for you. But at the same time, I'm not sure how much rebrand and some new features can help kind of bring it back.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
See, I was approaching it from the other direction. I played it a fair bit when it first came out. I had some fun with it, and then I got bored because it's very much the same thing. And granted, Shield could be right, and this could end up not really having a huge effect on the game. But I think the position Cafe Mix is in right now, it needed something to jolt a little bit of life into it. And for a game that is, it's fun if you're looking for a game to just kill some time and not really think too hard about. If these changes can breathe a little bit of life back into that game, I'm all for it. I'm cautiously optimistic to see what happens to Cafe Mix.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
definitely
admit
fair.
I admit this is completely a me problem, but I am just really tired of these games just renaming themselves for seemingly no reason. Like, you can do a major update and not change your name. I mean,
At
Masters
least
did the same thing.
Yeah, but at least it's not as much of a cluster as Masters EX.
Definitely
I
not.
mean,
Best
yeah.
hashtag ever.
Like, I'm sorry, but did none of them write that down and think what the hashtag would look like?
Yeah. Not
I'd
the
want to
best
bet
rename.
someone did and just didn't care.
I hope that's the case.
I think everyone in the room noticed, but because no one spoke up about it, no one dared.
Yeah.
That is not impossible.
Well, speaking of Masters EX, that was the next point. The third out of 4 mobile / spin-off games that was covered in this presents. It's the second anniversary. I think that's crazy. I didn't even realize it had been 2 years with this game. But within the game, you get 100 sync pairs at no cost. I thought that was kind of cool. I recently started this game, actually. I hadn't played it until I went on a cast last year and got absolutely annihilated for saying that I had not played the game. So I picked it up, and the 106 sync pairs, let me tell you, is pretty nice for someone who isn't that far into the game yet. They also have some legendary events returning with a weird focus on Gen 5 events, and a new story arc in December, which seems to be hinting at a Rainbow Rocket type appearance. Any opinions on Masters?
At mutual risk of annihilation, I will also say that I have never actually played Masters, but I have caught some of the story events on YouTube. Some of the voice acting is quite fun, and I'm especially intrigued by the fact that a lot of these story events happen, sort of, it's not full canon, but they do seem to happen after the events of the main games. So for me personally, I'm quite interested to see what happens with Chairman Rose, one of my personal favourite villains. What they do with his voice acting, hopefully not another god awful Cockney accent. Even though I don't expect to be playing this, I will be following it. Yeah, quite interested to see where they go. And congratulations on 2-year anniversary, even though, as I say, it's not something I've personally been involved with.
Yep. And then
I'm
oh, go ahead, Fitzy.
I'm really curious. I'm just really curious. It's if the image of Rainbow Rocket Giovanni with silhouettes of every villainous team leader standing behind him is hinting at a Rainbow Rocket story. I was just curious what it would take for you to consider it like actual evidence.
It's all just flavor.
My one thing about Masters EX, I'm happy about the 100 sync pairs. I just did my first, claimed my first set of 10 today, and I got a sync pair I hadn't had yet, which was nice. And I got a bunch that I already had, but I have like 100 something different sync pairs. The one thing that bothered me was that they announced that they're coming out with a new version of N that has Reshiram, when the normal N has Zekrom. And that bothered me, and I'm sure I'll catch flack for this, but I am well known as not a huge fan of Generation 5, and I happen to think that N is a highly overrated character, and I would have preferred either or both of those Pokemon to go to protagonists of the Gen 5 games. So to give both of them to N bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, I
But
think
other than that, I was excited about the rest of the Masters segment of the Presents.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think the focus on Gen 5 is kind of weird, especially with the Gen 4 remakes coming out later this year. You'd think they'd want to focus on Gen 4, but I guess not.
It's because the Gen 5 remakes are next.
Let's not even get into that. But
Yeah.
anyway, also celebrating an anniversary this year, it being 5 years rather than 2, is Pokemon Go, and they reveal a little bit of information on that as well. Galar Pokemon are being introduced into the game. I've already got some friends who have caught Wooloos. And I believe the 2 legendaries, the box legendaries, are going to be in raids, which is nice. And Hoopa is somehow linked in, which is kind of weird. I think that this is a good inclusion, except they just randomly decided that they were going to skip Gen 7 Pokemon, which I did not like. Since I like a lot of those Pokemon, the designs are great. But, that's the thing. Fans of Galar, rejoice.
I'm not sure you can really talk to Go about including Pokemon in a reasonable manner.
That is very
They're
fair.
notoriously bad at putting all the stuff in.
It struck me, and maybe I misunderstood the video, but it struck me that this appearance of Galar Pokemon, at least right now, is a temporary thing.
Huh.
Granted, I don't play a lot of Go. It has never been my bailiwick, and maybe that's because I played it at launch when you couldn't do anything except catch Pokemon, and it just bored the heck out of me. So I haven't played it since. But I got the I got the indication that it was going to be a temporary thing, and then like maybe they would come back on a permanent basis later. But like I said, I could have misunderstood what they were announcing.
That is also my exact understanding of it. So this will sort of be a temporary showcase of Galar, especially the sort of most mainstream common Galar species, before we then transition into Generation 7 proper. I am a very casual Go player. I am at a mere level 38. That makes me an absolute member of the proletariat. Just one fun anecdote I would have is that my mum is quite an avid Go player, plays it far more than me, but she also doesn't necessarily follow mainstream Pokemon news as much. So she was absolutely thrilled to discover that Wooloo is a thing, and I got a very excited text message which just said Wooloo exclamation mark. So yes, welcome to Galar.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Wooloo's
so
great.
I'm going back through the presents. I have it pulled up on my other monitor, and it does say players can look forward to seeing Wooloo, Squavit, and Phalanx during the event, which I think does lead some credibility to the fact that this will be temporary and they'll go away after the event's over.
Still kind of a weird
Yeah,
event
I'd
to
be more
have.
inclined to think that. I'd be more inclined to think it's just like their regular events, and it's a higher than normal chance of seeing them. I suspect they'll stick around.
I mean, it sure does feel like only the boosted mons during an event are the ones that spawn, but maybe that's just me.
Well, we'll find out soon enough.
Yes, we will. So with that, that's pretty much all they had in the first few minutes of the direct, with the flash reel of all of the mobile and spin-off games. And then we had a nice lengthy segment on Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which are the Gen 4 remakes coming out later this year. 3 months until they are released. And, I'm going to speak a little personally to start. I was actually pretty sold on Pokemon Legends Arceus prior to the presents, and I was really looking for something to sell me on these games, and I think that they did a wonderful job doing that. I was hoping for the biggest thing I was hoping for was the inclusion of the Platinum Dex, as it's known, community. And it seems like we've got that, even though it might be kind of kept by the underground. But overall, I mean, like, they did make some substantial upgrades to the underground, introduced character customization, which I know is a very important thing for a lot of people. And I think the games look a lot better. I think the only downside of the games for me was just the way that they presented it in the trailer. Those weird zoom-ins on the text, and it just seemed a little messy, and I just question, with given the budget that Pokemon has, could they have maybe made the trailer a little bit nicer? But overall, generally positive from me. What did you guys think? Emmy, you've been kind of quiet, so I'll start with you. I know you're pretty opinionated on Gen 4, so I'll let you take the wheel.
Well, I've been quiet because there hasn't been much for me to say. Like I said, I skipped like the first 5 minutes, 45 seconds of the trailer second time I watched it. So like I said, I actually went through not that long ago, like a little earlier today, and I took some notes and broke down the trailer basically from my perspective. A couple of things, of course, I noticed right away. Honey trees are, of course, back as a mechanic, and I hope to Lord Arceus that they actually fixed how those work, because it's actually one of the more frustrating bits of Diamond Pearl Platinum is you slather honey on the tree, you have to wait 6 hours real time, and then you find your encounter 6 hours later, and if you're actually looking for something pretty rare, you could be spending literal weeks. So I think I mentioned this as part of the trivia for my Platinum Let's Play, is I actually recorded 7 or 8 episodes in advance, and I didn't start uploading them to YouTube until after the point where I caught my Heracross, because I had no clue how long it was actually going to take me to find Heracross because of the honey mechanic. So that's one thing that I hope that they kind of improved on, either by shortening the amount of time that you need to wait, or at least by potentially allowing you to have different encounters, and the encounter not necessarily being decided when you slather the honey. Also, Munchlax trees were absolutely ridiculous, and nobody can convince me otherwise.
I don't
The
think anyone is trying.
Well, that's fair. The other thing that I noticed, of course, obviously, Caps, I noticed that they do have more than 2 fire types in the trailer, so hooray for the Platinum decks. But overall, it does seem like they're sticking to the Diamond and Pearl story, which of course makes sense. There was no sign of Looker or Charon in the trailer, and we do see the iconic scene where the player and rival are getting attacked at Lake Verity right at the beginning when they have to get their starters. I'm glad that they're not trying to put in field encounters to this. A couple of other things that come to mind, and I know I'm monologuing at this point, but I've been quiet for like the last half hour, so the Orberg gym looks very good. I am curious about the Orberg gym and a couple of other things, specifically the galactic bases. Even though they're using the Diamond and Pearl story, are they going to use the Platinum design for the gyms and for the galactic bases? Or are we going to have to do math when we go to Fantina's gym again? Because math is truly the scariest subject of all. Says the engineer. But anyway, so those are a couple of things that I'm still curious about. Obviously, very, very glad to see that the underground is back, and not quite as thrilled, but it's of course expected that super contests are back. Maybe I'll actually be able to get the hang of them this time, although it does still seem like there's a rhythm aspect to it, which means probably not. Secret bases only exist for Pokemon statues for some reason. We can talk about that a little bit more later. But overall, again, I'm looking at my notes. I'm looking at everything that I'm seeing. I'm disappointed that they decided to go with Diamond Pearl remakes instead of a Platinum remake, because I do think Platinum was a better story, and I've been waiting to see the Distortion World in 3D for like ever. But I'm not surprised, and again, I'm actually really looking forward to these games, mostly because I actually do have a Switch now, and yeah, so I expect that they'll be fun, and I also expect that one thing that's changed in the last 15 years or so is that technology has gotten better, and we won't have the loading screen of death when we're trying to save. Honestly, the whole saving all data thing was saving a lot of data thing was horrible, and if that makes a return, I will be very sad.
You did touch on a lot of things that I think a lot of the community is not necessarily noticing as prominently. Mostly that
I
being the
told
honey
you I'm the
mechanic.
Sinnoh expert.
Exactly, right. So, like, notably being the honey mechanic, I think that's definitely a very good point. Definitely would like to see that fixed. But, you mentioned also that they were using the Diamond Pearl story rather than the Platinum story. I think that's generally to be expected. And as unfortunate as it may be, it does remain true these are Diamond Pearl remakes rather than Platinum remakes. I also, similarly to how you are curious about the gym design, am curious about the gym order, because I believe in Diamond and Pearl, the third gym was the fighting gym, and then you would backtrack to Pastoria for the water gym, and then finally back to Hearthome for the ghost gym. Whereas they fixed that around in Platinum, I believe. Don't quote me
Yes,
on that.
that too. No, I will quote you on that, and you are correct. Gym order was Rourke, Gardenia, Maylene. Then you had Crasher Wake and Fantina as your first 5 gyms in Diamond and Pearl, and then you had Rourke, Gardenia, Fantina, Maylene, and then Wake in Platinum.
Right.
So, gym order is also something that's potentially up for grabs. I'm more inclined to say that they're going to be going the Diamond and Pearl order, but since the Diamond and Pearl order does require a bit of backtracking, maybe they'll streamline it and streamline it and stick to the Platinum order.
I mean, they might not. In Sword and Shield, the third gym is in the first major city you go to.
That's true. They did, and then they did that again, making you backtrack for the 5th gym as well, or the last gym. Sorry.
Yep.
I pretty much want to just repeat almost everything you said at the introduction to this segment, Caps, in as much that I saw that initial trailer, that initial reveal for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and thought, that's a neat art style. Appreciate it isn't to everyone else's taste. I like it well enough. But if it's going to be a Diamond and Pearl remake with a simplified art style, what else you got? What is going to elevate these titles beyond, say, a Diamond and Pearl port for the Switch? Because I do appreciate the desire to get Sinnoh into the hands of players who have not had a chance to experience it because they might not even have been born at the time of Diamond and
Oh,
Pearl.
God,
Oh,
way to
that
make
makes
some
me
of us feel
feel
old.
I know. Well, that's because some of you are old, to be frank.
Shush.
Yeah.
And so I was approaching this Pokemon Presents with the mindset of, okay, what is that X factor? What is that USP that you're going to reveal? In my heart of hearts, I had hoped for Mega Evolutions. Doesn't seem that's coming to pass. In fact, I'm not sure that they're going to be making an appearance again within a main series game. But we did get a large and varied bag of other features. We got returning super contests. We got Pokemon following you in the overworld. We got the expanded underground, which I am very excited to see. And the net result of all that is, yeah, I'm excited. It's enough. It's enough to make me happy and comfortable buying Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl. Those collectively are enough of an X factor that make me feel as though, okay, this is a remake that has progressed since those titles appeared on the DS. So yeah, positive.
So here's a question, because Wyndon touched on the following Pokemon. What the heck is going to be the purpose of Amity Square now?
Who knows?
Items you can get. I believe you get either contest items or maybe secret base items. It's been quite a while since I've played the Gen 4 games.
No, you can get contest items. There are a couple of TMs that are hanging around there. You can get some relatively rare berries. But the main reason most people went into them because that was like the only way you could have following Pokemon as of those games. And then Heart Gold, Soul Silver expanded on it. As far as secret bases go, like I said, it seems like the only decoration they have for that now is Pokemon statues. Now this makes me wonder how the heck we're going to be getting those statues. I wonder if that's an expanded role for Mr. Goods and Heart Home City, or if there's a completely different mechanic for them. But I'm slightly disappointed because I really liked a lot of the decorations and some of the customization, though not having to put all the boulders away. I feel like if that comes back, that's going to be slightly disappointing. But the secret base customization basically being reduced to Pokemon statues, and those statues kind of being used for a purpose other than base customization with, what the heck did they call it? Pokemon hideaways? Uh, I don't know. It takes a little bit away from the secret bases, and I don't think we saw flags
Yeah,
in the bases.
that's exactly
So
where I was going to go next. I think that
mean-
it's interesting that they don't have those, and it also makes me wonder how we're going to encounter Spiritomb. And with that, go ahead, Archaic.
I mean, they haven't shown them yet, but I suspect they're intentionally not showing a bunch of the things that we would expect to be in the games. They're focusing on the newer elements. I mean, I'd be very, very surprised if they have actually taken anything out of the games, with the exception of stuff that is outright incompatible. And even then, they've just adapted the Union Room and gambling references, because they do seem to be
But I love
totally
the theme.
destroying.
I love the theme for the Veilstone Game Corner, though. It's like one of the best ones in the entire franchise.
And they're replacing it with the fashion store. Maybe that's where the music will be.
Oh, good lord. That's another reason for me to dislike
Will be.
Pokemon trainer customization.
I love Pokemon trainer customization. And
Yes,
with all due
thank
respect,
goodness they
you're
have that.
wrong.
I'd take
I
the Game
saw-
Corner any day.
I
saw a customization.
Why can't we
Yeah.
have both?
See, if it was an option of having both, fine. But I'd take the Game Corner any day.
Okay, but it's not the option of having both. We can't have the game corner anymore.
I know. I'm sad.
It's the fashion location or nothing at this point.
I will briefly say that in the past I have hosted a trivia event where one of the rounds was which city or town or route is associated with which piece of music from the Pokemon games. And if you play the Gen 4 Game Corner music, the largest reaction from the room was, "Are you sure this is a Pokemon soundtrack?"
Yeah, it's good. It's
Yeah.
very good. It's one of my favorites.
So, not to interrupt Emmy's monologuing, but I did want to touch on one thing that he brought up, which was the Snorlax trees.
Munchlax trees.
The
You do
Munchlax
not get
trees.
an entire Snorlax to go up a tree.
Yes, I misspoke. It happens every once in a while to all of us. But I do think one thing that in addition to the player customization, which I have been a huge fan of since X and Y came out, because I'm very much the type of player who wants to be able to identify with my player character, and I find that player customization makes that easier. When I make Gloria or Victor in Sword and Shield, I'm not just playing the base character, I'm making my version of them. So it's very much, it's me going through the game. So I'm happy about that, but the fact that they showed in the presents a Munchlax walking in one of the Pokemon hideaways that you can just encounter and then catch, I can't help but feel that was specifically for those of us who originally played Generation 4 and have that little knot of resentment towards Munchlax that's been around for a decade or longer. Because I remember when Diamond and Pearl came out, and I remember how many people just skipped it entirely and just brought in a Snorlax from Fire Red and Leaf Green after they beat the game, because it was such a nightmare. And so I liked the little moment of, oh, you can just find it now. Whatever else they do with the honey trees. One thing that I haven't heard anybody talk about, though, either here or I haven't even really seen it talked about in our Discord community, which is how I talk to most Bulba Garden people. I don't do the forums or anything like that.
Tisk, tisk.
Yeah, well, to each their own. There was a shot in the presents, and I actually paused it here on my video. It is at 10 minutes and 13 seconds in the presents video. There is very clearly a rock climb wall.
Yes, okay. I do have it written as a note. HMs are back in the worst possible region.
I don't know if
rock
they're
climbing
back,
is back
necessarily.
But they have not said whether or not HMs are back, and if they're not back, they haven't said how they're going to work around them. But it definitely looks like rock climbing at least is going to be in the game, and so I am intrigued to hear more about that.
That's the first time anyone has said that they've been intrigued about rock climb.
Hey, rock climb is great. It's like my favorite move if you don't count all the other moves.
If you don't count any move other than rock climb, it's my favorite move.
Even struggle?
Struggle's pretty cool.
Look, we can all agree that rock climb is not the worst move. Not in a game where defog exists.
I was gonna say it's not
Yeah,
even the
well,
worst
that's-
HM.
That's entirely the point that I was making. If HMs are making a comeback, this is literally the worst game that you can do it in. I don't recall, but there was a video done about potentially being able to solo the game with just a single starter, and you literally cannot, if you are just using that one Pokemon, you literally cannot solo Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum because you need 5 HMs to get through Victory Road, and Pokemon can only learn up to 4 moves. So, yeah, it's the region of HMs. The rock climb wall was there. I do have that as a note on my list of notes. But maybe we'll get ride Pokemon or some kind of weird tricked out bike to fix it. It would help.
The acro bike, but it can go up rock climb walls.
That'd be great.
Cool.
I've just seen a comment in the chat suggesting that we are not confused about rock climb. I take issue with this because by far the best use of rock climb is to stick it on a Tauros with sheer force to even lose the secondary effect. So that in no circumstances should anyone be confused by rock climb, because you shouldn't be using it on anything other than something that gets sheer force and same type attack boost on it.
Even then,
I got the pun. I got the pun.
I did too, but at the same token, even if you're doing that, how much more powerful is it than a max power return? And how much accuracy do you lose because rock climb is not 100% accurate?
It is more powerful thanks to sheer force taking away the secondary effect in favor of a straight up attack boost.
Right, but by how much? And does it make up for the lowered accuracy?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I believe that overall, if you calculate the amount of damage that is going to be done over X number of turns, rock climb still comes out narrowly ahead.
Seems like
Can
an
we
awful
talk
lot of
about-
trouble.
Can we talk about how simultaneously ridiculous and adorable Professor Rowan looks in the chibi style?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Like the art style has definitely been the most controversial element of these games. I know there's quite a it feels like to some extent this is Pokemon's Wind Waker moment. It seems like there's some people who don't like this kind of look, and I'm just like, frankly, this is better than they did in Link's Awakening. It fits, and honestly, I'm not as much of a fan of the 3D style they had in, Sun and Moon and so forth. This, to me, I would have preferred the 3DS games were styled in this way.
I don't mind the art style either. I did mind it at the beginning, but it's kind of grown on me. And I really gotta say, Archaic, I know you're not the biggest fan of the Link's Awakening art style, but I will say Nintendo has really been nailing the toy-like art style in this generation. Between Link's Awakening, this game, Clubhouse games, which looks amazing, and also the Advance Wars remakes, there are quite a few games in this art style or similar art styles that look really good this generation.
Well, they've certainly improved since the days of Pokemon Rumble, let's put it that way.
Definitely.
Yeah, I never really had an issue with the art style when the remakes were first revealed, but now comparing this trailer to the one we got back in February, it's realizing just how much of an improvement it made. Like, I had some issues with the art style. Well, not the art style, but just the execution of it. Like, the colors were a little rough and the lighting was weird. But I mean, overall, I was fine with it. But now it looks legitimately very good, which I was not expecting, honestly.
I mean, if you dislike the art style, I encourage you to go back and look at the scenes in the lab. The scenes in the lab where, you know, the player characters reflected in the, like, they're all reflected in the floor, and the lighting is really good. It's just, it looks great.
And Professor Rowan looks ridiculous and adorable.
Oh my god,
Exactly.
his head is huge.
His head is gigantic. I love it so much.
Like I said earlier,
Okay.
I didn't like how in the trailer they kept on zooming in on the text, and that was just because the only thing I could focus on when they did that was his obnoxious mustache in the corner. Are there any videos that you recommend comparing the two trailers? HT, I haven't seen any personally. I've seen a couple of Twitter screenshots that do a good job, but I couldn't direct you directly to them.
Yeah, I've just seen stuff on Twitter. I haven't seen any videos.
And Duke also notes in the chat, I personally hope for a Let's Go Pikachu Eevee art style instead of the one they went for. I think, you know, I generally agree, and a lot of people I watch, like on YouTube and see on Twitter, dislike the Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu art style, but I think it looks better than the Sword and Shield art style. And I agree, at least from the standpoint of, well, if you're going to make these games and you want to cut costs and make game development time faster, why not use the same sort of art style as the previous games? But I think that's gonna. I mean, like, again, it's grown on me, and I think this is also representative of a couple of other things. For one, I mean, these games are not developed by Game Freak; they're developed by a different company. I can't remember which one, but it's not Game Freak.
Ilka.
Yes, them. And also, it's going to go into another point that I'm going to bring up when we talk about Legends Arceus, but it really does. It really helps to separate, you know, these different versions of mainline Pokemon and why they exist and what they're for and who their target audiences are.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna bring that up. Like, this is the first time, other than, I can't really think of any other generation other than Gen 7 with Ultra Sun Moon to Let's Go, where we've had such a shift in the art style between core entries. I mean, we have 3 different art styles within the same generation with Sword and Shield, the remakes, and then Legends.
4 if you count Let's Go. But I mean, I guess that is technically considered
Let's
Gen
Go is
7.
Gen 7 though, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, and another thing, to the remakes credit in terms of art style compared to Let's Go, I heard this argument before and it made a lot of sense to me. Is like, Let's Go's map feels pretty small because the map isn't meant for you to be so big compared to it. Like, you move way faster than you did in the originals, and it makes the map feel kind of small. Like, you can get across it super quickly.
That is fair.
And I feel to agree with Shield, I feel that shrinking down the characters is going to make Sinnoh feel that much bigger than worlds have felt in the more recent remakes.
Well, to be fair, in Gens 1 through 3, 1 through 4 or 5, you actually literally do see your character shrinking down at the end of the professor's dialogue. I think they stopped that, and I can't remember when.
I think they did it in 5. I think when they moved to the 3D quasi chibi art style of Gen 6, I think is when they stopped it. But I could be wrong.
That sounds about right, but it's I don't know why it's been so long, but it has been a while since I played the Gen 5 games.
Yeah.
I started a Black 2 playthrough the other day, but I cannot remember if that happened in it.
There's one last thing I'd like to chat about before we move on to Legends Arceus, which, let's be honest, is probably the thing our listeners are most interested in. But
Hey,
contests,
Sinnoh is better.
The contests, I have always liked having alternative things to do in the games besides just battling. Though I always have been a bit disappointed that there hasn't been as much advancement with those sorts of mechanics. I mean, it's not like you can gain XP from doing contests, and they still haven't done that from the looks of it. But it really looks like there's a lot more meat to the contests now than there was previously. And I'm really excited for that. I mean, I'm not a competitive battler. I've never had the time to do that sort of breeding and so on and so forth. But contests have always felt like this thing you could get into even if you didn't have time to do that sort of extensive Pokemon breeding. And I'm hoping that they're as deep or deeper than it seems from that trailer. Because I would love to be able to do Pokemon contests online against other people and have that be an enjoyable experience.
That's definitely a good idea. I hope that's implemented.
Didn't they have that in Gen 4?
You could.
I'm pretty sure they did.
Maybe locally.
Yeah, locally, I don't think there was. Back then, there wouldn't have been online for contests. I don't think. I'd have to double check. It was so
I mean, there
long
wasn't
ago.
even online battling in Gen 4.
Yeah, so there wouldn't have been. It would have been
So
only local.
There was a way, again limited by the time because it was 15 years ago. There was a way to do multiplayer contests. I will say for my Platinum Let's Play, the contest episode was the biggest pain in my neck. I literally had to do the master rank contest probably a good 20 some odd times before I could actually get one where I won. And I still have no clue how I did it. I think it was still mostly sheer luck. I can't, like, I feel like a decent chunk of it is rhythm, and I ain't got rhythm. And, again, for those who will enjoy it, good. I'm glad they're back because I know that there are a lot of people who enjoy them. I will probably not be going through that particular headache again. I literally had to give up in the middle of recording that episode, record like the next 2 episodes, and then come back to record the final contest after I'd calmed down a bit because it was incredibly frustrating for me, and all just to get one trainer card star.
Yeah, well, there's more to it than that.
I do want to
You get-
mention something else about the contest and then touch on something that HT has put in the chat. But I will say, Archaic, to your point about the way that they've restructured the contests, and something that I've heard going around, like from certain Bulba staff, most notably I would say Glick, who is a frequenter on Bulbacast. But he and others are kind of frustrated that it seems like they've kind of removed and dumbed the contest down, if it makes sense. It seems like they only
So I
showed
might actually be able to do it after all.
well, yeah, I mean, possibly, but I mean, like, there's like, you don't see the Pokemon dress-up segment anymore. The dance rhythm segment seems to be mixed in with the battles in the sort of way, or with the move portion in a sort of way. But I think this is less of a like a drawback and more of a pro, because I feel like it makes the contest a little bit more focused. Um, in what they're trying to do rather than just be a bunch of mini games. It is you can go in and be a trainer that focuses on contests now, and you don't have a million different things you need to worry about when doing that.
I mean, let's put it this way: between trainer customization and a bit more active involvement from the trainer in the contest, like the rhythm game seems a bit more fleshed out than I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Though I doubt we're going to see anything as hard as like Taikon no Tatsujin Extreme or
Right.
Yeah, I guess Taikon no Tatsujin is probably the rhythm game that's most similar with how they've displayed it. But like in the anime, the trainer was a part of the contest performance. It wasn't just the Pokemon up on stage. and it feels here they've taken a bit of a cue from the presentation of contests in the anime to think about how they could spice this up for the games. And I think that's a good thing.
I just want to say I feel like it is a little premature to be judging the contest either way.
Well, that's the
Because
whole point of the contest, is to be judged.
okay, but they didn't really show us too many details on how the contests are working. So I feel like to claim that they have dumbed down or simplified or removed parts of the contests is a bit premature because A, we don't know that for sure, and B, we don't know that they haven't added things to replace what they took away. And personally, speaking as someone who is very into Pokemon contests, I've said before that if they made a game that was nothing but like your journey to become a master coordinator, it would be my favorite Pokemon game ever. I think getting rid of the dress-up portion is one of the best things they could have possibly done. In the original games, the dress-up portion was inscrutable. There were so many times where you'd get a theme and the quote-unquote correct accessories didn't really make any sense. And it was also the dress-up portion of it was very much an artifact of that time in the DS's lifespan where every game had to have a touchscreen gimmick. It had to, or it wasn't justified as a 3DS or as a DS game. So I think for those reasons, if the dress-up portion is gone, I'm happy about it. But I also, again, think it is too early to be making such declarations about the contest since we weren't even positive they were coming back until this trailer. Because I don't remember them being mentioned in the first trailer, though I could be misremembering.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I said, they've been focused on things that are new or which have changed in some way. It's not exactly a surprise to me that, like, we might not have seen the full depth of these. But, I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, back in Gen 4, contests were only basically judged over 2 rounds, and now we have a contest judged over 3 rounds with the
No,
addition of
there were
the-
three. There were 3 rounds in the Gen 4. You
What
had
was
the
it?
Yeah.
dress up.
Dress
Dress
up.
up,
Okay,
rhythm,
so
and
dress
then
up has
moves.
been replaced by dance, basically now.
No,
Well, the dance
there
one
was a
was there
dance in
too.
the original too. And I still have no clue how the heck the dance works in Gen 4, but it's there.
It's just Simon Says, I believe. It's like the lead Pokemon does something, and you have to match their moves.
Yeah, but then how can you fail when you're the lead Pokemon? Somehow I managed to fail multiple times when I was the lead Pokemon.
Because you have to match the rhythm of the music playing, and you don't have any rhythm.
See, this is the problem. And this will continue to be a problem with contests moving forward, but it's my problem.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so no, I see why I was getting mixed. So, primary judging and secondary judging was the thing I was thinking of. So, primary judging Pokemon based on conditions.
Oh, yeah, so you can feed them Poffins, which, by the way, we didn't see Poffins in the trailer, but I assume they're coming back if contests are back. So you feed them Poffins, and you max out their condition in stats and what have you, or in contest stats. That's primary. I think you get like pink hearts for that in judgment, and then secondary judging for the dress up is going to be based on the actual accessories that you use, and you get red hearts for that. I was really traumatized by that episode that I recorded, so I remember this stuff.
Yeah,
I've
so
heard about this.
what it seemed like was that the dancing was an additional judging type, separate from the existing primary and secondary judging.
Well, technically, yes, but it was in the original games as well.
Have you guys heard about this exciting new mechanic called the Hisuian Poffin? Speaking of which, Cap,
I do want to
What?
move on to
No,
Legends,
hold
but
on.
He's He's
I've
being
got- I've-
facetious.
I've got 2 more minor points regarding the Sinnoh remakes, and then I'm done.
All right, lightning round, go.
So first, nobody's talked about seals yet. They've upped the amount from 8 stickers to 20 stickers, which is nice, allows for more customization. I do hope that they're a lot less of a pain in the neck than they were in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, where you could set up the custom Pokeballs, then you actually give them to a Pokemon, and if you want to put the Pokemon in a PC, you got to take it out of that custom ball, and it just ended up not really being worth it to use seals most of the time. So I hope that there's a way to actually store the Pokemon in the custom Pokeball animation in the PC instead of needing to take them out and reassign that all the time. I wonder how many new designs they'll allow us to use for that. So that's seals. Again, an idea that I really liked in the original game. I hope it's better in the new game. And then lastly, we did talk about a very brief moment with regarding to the rock climb rocks. One other thing that I noticed in a very brief snippet, berry growing is back.
Yes, and that kind of I kind of wanted to bring this up earlier. There's a comment in the chat about the berry growth. Since they do exist, wonders how it will be set up in these games. If it will be similar to the originals, I would say probably.
I would hope so, because boy, that was a very, very exploitable resource in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. I mean, I basically did not have to buy any status healing items at all. I did
Yeah.
not have to worry about PP max or PP up or ethers and elixirs and stuff like, because I just had berries for like everything.
And I mean that definitely suited for your type of playthrough with the platinum LP, where you take breaks and you kind of have time for the berries to grow and whatnot. But I digress. So let's move on to Legends now.
Hey, real quick, I have one more point.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'll let it slide.
I'm gonna try and get this soon. So in regards to character customization, one thing I noticed, it looks like it's gonna kind of be the Let's Go way of doing it, where you just select a full outfit instead of the individual parts, and I'm not sure I'm a fan of that.
There is customization
even
with
worse.
the character model, I believe, as well. But I think those are also preset. I'm not sure if you'd be able to change those in game, though.
Yeah, I think with the art style, that's a bit more something I can forgive. If they were going like the full large 3D models, I'd be a bit more upset with it. But when it's these tiny chibi-fied ones, it's not a huge deal. I mean, you're not going to see like tiny details on the characters to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me too much. I wasn't expecting customization at all in the first place, but I thought it was something that I should mention.
Because if you didn't, one of the commenters would.
Yeah.
Well, with that, let's
We
move
should
on to
probably-
Legends. I'm putting my foot down now.
Before
So
Wyndon has an aneurysm.
the big last half of the presents, I would say, was focused on Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is the
No, you had it right the first time.
whatever, Pokemon Legends Arceus, I don't care. But the whole last half of the direct was dedicated to this new kind of spin on the Pokemon formula. And the games are set in a older version of Sinnoh, which we now know as, what is it? I can't even pronounce it right.
Hisui.
Hisui.
Gesundheit.
Which is a older version of Sinnoh, back when the first, discoverers of the region came to the region that we know of. And it seems to be taking on a much more, I want to say, like, very much like classical Japanese theming, both within the like art style and style of the like concept art that they presented in the trailers, as well as the music, which I thought was really cool. There were a lot of really cool remixes in like traditional Japanese style of Gen 4 songs, which I personally like. Gen 4 is my favorite soundtrack, so there you go. The gameplay is much more of a Monster Hunter style. You're given quests, and then you go do the quests. You come back to a hub area, and get another quest, rinse, repeat, etc. Which is different than the traditional turn-based only system, although that does make an appearance in these games. They showed off a lot of the different sections of the world you'll encounter, as well as introducing new Pokemon. We have a new form of Growlithe. We have a new form of Braviary. A evolution to Basculin, which is my personal favorite from the trailer, Basculegion. And we also have an evolution of Stantler, which is Wordier. And I think these are all really good designs and quality introductions. These feature Pokemon that are kind of almost like forgotten, and then they kind of revamp them, add a new evolution with Basculin and Stantler. And then you have, of course, Growlithe, which is a fan favorite, but also Braviary, which is less of a fan favorite. So good variety there. I'm excited to see what other Hisuian forms there will be. But yeah, I thought the trailer did a good job showcasing more of what this game actually is, and it definitely seems like it's open world. A lot of YouTubers are claiming that it is open world. Of course, we don't know
It's
that for sure
not.
yet.
It is not. We saw that in the trailer. This is a series of interconnected wild areas. It is not a pure open world.
Well, there you go.
I
I would agree with that.
They showed you using that map to go to the different zones, and they talked about how you started with
Well, that doesn't.
the base camp in each zone. I think, is that more like how Monster Hunter does it? I think that
It is how Monster
comparison
Hunter
you
does it.
used then. Yeah, I think that comparison you used there was very apt. I think it is much closer to the Monster Hunter style of doing things than to the
Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
Right.
And,
I think
and there's no
Go ahead,
problems
sorry.
with that, but it's
On the flip side, though, Breath of the Wild has a map that you can bring up to travel to the different areas. And there is a quote unquote base camp in the tower in each area. I think I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm just saying that what we have seen doesn't necessarily mean it's not open world.
Exactly. I think that the problem with this whole like open world, non-open world speculation is we just don't know. A lot of people are claiming that it is 100% open world, which is not true. We don't know that. I mean, I think the biggest thing that they use in examples is the way that the game is presented. It feels like a very much an open world presentation, and I would agree. You have that cliff where you jump off and boom, you're flying on a Braviary. It's very reminiscent of Breath of the Wild. But at the same time, you do have that map select screen. The gameplay loop seems like it's much more mission focused, like Monster Hunter. We just need to see more to tell. Personally, I don't really care. I'm fine with it either way. I think the game looks good. I think both gameplay loops of Breath of the Wild and Monster Hunter are very enticing. And I think that no matter which one they choose to emulate, it's going to be a very addictive gameplay.
See, conversely, I get lost in the wild area all the time, and I prefer my world to be a little bit more structured. I don't like open world. I don't like pseudo open world. I don't like the fact that I can change the camera angle, and again, that's not having that kind of fixed point where I can always say, okay, this is this direction, that's that direction, north, south, east. I get lost very, very easily in the wild area, which is really, I mean, if I were to ever do a Let's Play of it, it would probably be one of the funniest parts of the Let's Play is just watching me wander around and get lost in the wild area. But, again,
So you're telling us that you are basically Leon.
I would not be surprised if I somehow was on my way to Hammerlock City and ended up in the Distortion world.
I think part of the problems that you have with the wild area are more, design flaws in Sword and Shield's world design rather than traditional open world flaws. Because I mean, in Breath of the Wild, even though it's and I hate to keep bringing up Breath of the Wild because I don't think it's an accurate comparison for like Legends Arceus, but in that game you have the mini map, and all the areas are clearly laid out. You can constantly see Hyrule Castle in the distance, no matter where you are, always having that fixed point so you know where you are in relation to it throughout the world is very useful. I mean, that game just does a lot better than the wild area does, but it is what it is.
So the I forgot what I was going to say, which is a first.
I also think we're focusing on the wrong thing to talk about first.
That's fair.
You're right. Caps mentioned the Hisuian Pokemon. This is the point where I point out that they're all extinct.
Well,
Ooh.
I think we should. I would like.
If they're
I-
extinct, you'd know there'll just be more fossils in the next game.
See, that's right. That's kind of the point. Is they are technically all extinct because we've seen Sinnoh in the modern era. None of these Pokemon, but in the Pokemon universe, being extinct really is just a minor inconvenience.
Actually, well, there's the bigger question. BDSP. Are these new Hisuian Pokemon in BDSP?
Not if they're going to stick
I
to the
don't think
original
so.
Diamond and Pearl.
Yeah, I don't think so. But we'll see.
Maybe transferable, but definitely not.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
think
by
so.
default.
But they've already shown that at least when it comes to Pokemon selection, they're not sticking to the original Diamond and Pearl.
And
But
that
that
means
means
that
that
any
I still
Pokemon,
think
any
they're only
Pokemon you
transferable.
see in Hisui that is not in Sinnoh went extinct in that region or migrated to a different one.
Well,
Anyway.
we did not encounter Slugma in our initial visit to Kanto, but we did later. So I wouldn't necessarily get too hung up on the timing of when species appear in these games. I think by hook or by crook, the Hisuian forms will find a way to appear in later installments, whether or not that's Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I think one of the things that's really interesting for me about these games, aside from the quote unquote open world nature, aside from I adore the art style. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a really interesting historical period. This is a great example of a big, ambitious Pokemon project that, so far from what we've seen, does not feature any outright new Pokemon species, any outright new Pokemon line. It's just so far we've seen Hisuian forms, we've seen evolutions of existing species. It's not yet clear, for example, whether we will see Hisuian Basculin or Hisuian Stantler. And to me, this signals approach that has become increasingly evident in recent months and years, whereby the Pokemon Company and Game Freak are making better use of the existing intellectual resources they have with regards to Pokemon species, with regards to characters, and creating some quite conventional gameplay experiences using just a small selection of those. So, starting with Let's Go, for example, Sword and Shield did not feature a full national dex. And so here we have another example of a game that's not actually introducing a whole vast new roster of species, and it's not necessarily introducing a new region proper, but what it's doing is making use of those existing species, those existing regions, some of those existing characters to craft an experience. And for me, that is more interesting in some respects than sort of almost scrapping everything that's come before. Let's start afresh with this new cast, all these new species populate this region. And I'm actually more interested to see them make use of and reconfigure the things that already exist.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I'm one of those weirdos who plays Pokemon games for the plot.
Hey, me
And
too.
This game
Pokemon has a plot.
This game seems to do far more than we've seen from many Pokemon games in the past. in terms of really advancing that plot and giving us some more of the backstory of the world. Like that, this is the kind of thing I've been wanting to see from the games for a very, very long time. And I mean, well, we'll have to come back and touch on that later, I guess. But
Well,
I
you're
think there's a
talking
lot. My only concern is that there's a lot of plot elements which are pretty damn obvious just from the fact it's a prequel and common tropes. I do worry that a lot of this is going to be too predictable. But, well, I say too predictable, and yet, given some of the social media reactions to some of the themes, I suspect many people aren't predicting it.
Let me clue you in. At the end of the prequel trilogy, Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader.
Spoilers.
Spoilers.
Mm-hmm.
But going along with what Archaic was saying, the point I actually wanted to touch on before we started talking about the Hisuian forms, because I think it was, from what I saw, one of the biggest points of speculation after the original trailer for Legends was the symbol on the protagonist's costume. And we now know what that stands for. And it is because you are working for the Galaxy team. And I am so freaking stoked to find out what that could possibly mean for the lore of Sinnoh.
There have been so
Like, when
many people clamoring for the ability, and Archaic, you too. I mean, the ability to play as the villain. And if the Galaxy team is the precursor to Team Galactic, you have done that in this game. Go ahead.
No, but not playing as you're
not
not exactly
necessarily.
playing as a villain yourself. You're working for the group that's likely to be the villainous team. But
Well,
let's
that
be
we know
honest:
of.
as soon as you realize they're villainous, you're going to turn on them.
Well, we
This
don't
is
know that.
Pokemon.
We also don't know
and-
that they're going to become villainous in this game. It is entirely possible that could come at the end of the game. We could be the reason Cyrus is obsessed with Dialga and Palkia. And I
Okay,
think
so
that could be really exciting.
so I'm going to give you a reason that they are going to become villainous within the game, and that we're going to turn on them. Or at least, I mean, there'll probably be some division within the team, and maybe people will leave it, and will be some of those leaving it or something. But a number of people have noticed some of the themes of colonization and so forth in this game, and have also connected the professor to Thomas Blackiston, so this English naturalist who spent a lot of his time in Hokkaido in the late 1800s in the real world. So we've got the links there. We've got the links to Japan's own colonization of that area, and right now we haven't seen a lot of obvious Ainu peoples in the region, though your hero may be closer in outfit to them. I think the trailer gave it away, though, with that whole thing about the like this a time before people and humans lived in harmony, which seems a bit contradictory to Sinnoh Folktales 3, which tells us about in the old times how human and Pokemon lived in harmony. My guess right now is that we have native people in this region who are going to be this region's equivalent of the real world Ainu, and they are living in harmony with Pokemon, and we learn from them, and we turn against Team Galactic, who are exploiting them.
It's not Team Galactic, it's the Galaxy team.
Well,
First of all,
it's Galaxy team, but it's the precursor to Team Galactic. But
Right,
yeah.
it's discount Team Galactic with Cyrus's ancestor being one of the and Professor Rowan's ancestor being one of the leaders.
Professor Rowan's ancestor being the leader. So something's going to happen there. But I think that people shouldn't be treating a Pokemon game like it's a doctoral dissertation on history.
I do agree with that.
I'm
Like,
not
are
saying
there
it's a
parallels?
doctoral dissertation. I'm just saying there's very obvious historical parallels in a game based on historical events. Take inspiration from historical events.
My take would be, I would be very surprised if this game does quite so directly touch upon those themes of colonization, of sort of cultural replacement. I
don't think it's going to be quite so much on the colonization part, but I think like there is going to be a native people here who we are going to learn from.
What I definitely think will be one of the overwhelming themes, definitely this, is this idea of Pokemon are scary, and we've seen Professor Laventon himself is a Pokemon professor who has travelled the world, who is terrified of Pokemon. So I would be,
which in and of itself is a hilarious concept, by the way.
Absolutely, and so I can definitely foresee a situation where not only Laventon but indeed this society is scared of Pokemon, and so that opens up interesting avenues in as much that okay, are we going to turn against these people? Are these people going to turn against us? Could we in fact bring most, if not all, of this cast on a journey with us as we discover and research more about the Pokemon, and they in turn also learn from our research? But for me, that's more the kind of tone I would expect from a Pokemon game. I can definitely see the potential for more slightly complex themes, slightly more complex plot. I do think at the end of the day, Game Freak have a bit of form in terms of relatively simple themes. But we'll see. There's a first opportunity for everything.
I feel like this may be why it's got the name of Pokemon Legends, in a way.
Well,
I think this is their experiment in doing a more story-driven game than previous Pokemon main series titles.
To
But
touch on
it is
something
more
that
specifically for
Archaic
world
mentioned.
building.
To touch on something that Archaic mentioned, you talked about the Sinnoh myths and people living in harmony with Pokemon. Putting aside the fact that continuity has never been a huge focus of Pokemon, if you want to get really technical, all of those myths are about the early days of Sinnoh, which, if this region is Hisui, doesn't exist yet. So it's entirely possible that
How many hundreds of years are we saying exist between Hisui and Sinnoh?
how old are we saying those myths are? We don't have a timeline for either of them, really. But I just like what you're saying is possible, but it is also possible that nobody's living in harmony with these Pokemon, and the Galaxy team changes that.
I mean,
I mean, at
I
the
will
same
say,
token,
I think the Sinnoh folk tales are relevant here. I mean, read Sinnoh folk story 1. So, pick clean the bones of Pokemon caught in the sea or stream, thank them for the meals they provide, and pick their bones clean. When the bones are as clean as can be, set them free in the water from which they came. The Pokemon will return fully fleshed, and it begins anew. If that is not inspiration for Hisuian Basculin, I don't know what is. What? No, it's not Hisuian Basculin. It's the evolution, isn't it? What was its name again?
Basculegion.
Basculegion. That's it. That is Basculegion, right there.
Yeah,
pretty accurate.
Maybe.
I will note that from a recent Twitter thread that Galarian people in particular just love eating Basculin, and they're going to be in for quite a surprise when Basculegion shows up.
I'm just happy that Baneri's in the game. Anyone who knows me knows that it is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I saw it in the trailer, and so I am already 10 out of 10 on this game.
I think it's interesting that you see the. I actually kind of want to touch on a couple things. I think regarding Pokemon and their availability within these games, but I think it's cool that you get to see like Turtwig and Charmander just roaming around in the wild, when we know that they are eventually very rare Pokemon much later. But also, I think it's interesting within we were talking about this earlier within the lore of you know all these new forms that we see are extinct. I think
Yes.
that ties in really interestingly with the fact that a lot of the like I believe there's some mention that these Pokemon, specifically the Pokemon you can see the player character interacting with, you got Wordeer and Basculegion and the Hisuian Braviary, are all incredibly important during your journey. It seems like they're very much like the rideable Pokemon, I guess, but
Yeah.
the overworld esque like transportation Pokemon that like I guess you would be in harmony with them to accomplish some task that you want to do. And it's odd that they are now mysteriously gone. These Pokemon that were integral to your experience are now gone in the Sinnoh games.
I mean, they are the HM replacement. They are the ride Pokemon
Well, yeah,
for
that would be the
this.
mechanic. That would be the
Right.
mechanical explanation.
Which
Yeah, but from a historical perspective, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what word they use other than evolution
True.
to explain what may be happening. I mean, is this? I mean, this is the bravery seems to migrate here in the winter, but I mean, did we play our games during the summer before? Did all the events happen at the wrong time of year
They
for those bravery to turn up?
they do mention, because to just to touch on that, that Hisui is not very developed. It looks like we have Jubilife Village, which seems to be a pretty bustling village for the time period. But there's a lot more wilderness to Hisui than there is to Sinnoh. And they do specifically mention that Stantler evolves as part of dealing with the harsh environment of Hisui. So at the very least, Weird Ear could have gone extinct because of the word is eluding me, the city makingness.
urbanization.
Urbanization.
Thank
Yeah.
you. The urbanization of Sinnoh, those harsh environments that can make a Stantler into a Weird Ear, they might not be there, or there might not be enough of them in Sinnoh for
But
Weird Ear to
you can't even
continue.
find Stantler in Diamond Pearl Platinum. Nor
But
can you
maybe you
find
can in,
Basculin.
but maybe
Hunted
you
to
can in
extinction for
Diamond and
food?
Shining Pearl. Or maybe they just got sick of Sinnoh and so they all walked to Johto. We don't know.
I don't think
Even
Basculin can walk.
or even on the discovery of Basculegion, the Galarians discovered an even more delicious fish, migrated en masse, devoured the Basculean population, and then returned home.
It's possible.
I feel like that story is a little fishy.
Or Lavington himself ate them all.
I would like to see. Um, I don't know to what extent Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl will acknowledge the events of Pokemon Legends Arceus. It might not. It might even be a post-game thing that isn't even released until Legends Arceus comes out. I don't know. But
I feel
developing
like
this kind of lore, this is more of what I want from the Pokemon games. All the lore we've got so far is really unreliable legends, as in the Pokedex. Um,
That's what we're
Pokedex.
literally helping to
Okay.
create in this game.
yeah,
First of all, the Pokedex is a book of lies.
yes.
Anything in the Pokedex that is not corroborated by outside evidence, I do not believe. But outside of the Pokedex, in the Pokemon world, every legend is 100% true. Every
Yes.
legend, every myth, every folk story. So I'm happy we get to live one of those 100% true folk stories.
I'm
that's
looking
just
at
me.
the map, and something that I didn't notice, but before, but I noticed now, is that it looks like the Snow Point Temple exists in this region at this time.
Wouldn't be surprised.
It's up there in the top
Didn't-
left corner. I didn't see it before.
I'm trying to remember the ruins we saw in the trailer. What were they?
Those, off the top of my head, looked more familiar to the Spear Pillar than the Snow Point Temple, but I could be wrong, and I mean that could just be in Snow Point, I guess. Shield,
So how
you've
about
been
those
kind of
strong
quiet so
style
far.
and-
Any thoughts?
Did Shield fall asleep?
Potential.
I just have nothing to say because I don't care about lore, and I'm just here for the funny turtle.
That's totally fair.
Well, valid.
Go ahead,
So how about
Fitzy.
those strong style and agile style moves?
We haven't touched on that yet. I like them. I think it's going to introduce a newer kind of strategy to battling that I think will be very refreshing.
Yeah, I definitely liked. I don't know if any of you have ever played it, but Final Fantasy X had a similar combat style where it was turn-based, but the moves you used could affect how often or when you went next. And it adds an interesting layer to your strategy. Like, do you hit the big move and hope you can survive the counterattack, or do you go with 2 quick moves in a row and hope that that's enough to take down your opponent? I am excited and curious to see how it works in practice.
I mean, it's nowhere near the
I was
same.
comparing it more to Octopath Traveler's thing, but
It is-
perhaps that Final Fantasy one's a more appropriate comparison.
Yeah, I mean,
it is similar to both. The difference that I see is that Octopath Traveler, no matter how quick or slow you move, it is still divided into rounds. Like everybody gets to go before anybody can go a second time, except in rare circumstances. Whereas it looks like it is entirely possible that you could get 2 or 3 moves in a row if your moves are quick enough.
Yeah.
I feel like that's
So-
just going to get extremely broken extremely quickly, but that's just me.
well, the good thing
Okay,
is
I
that
have-
there aren't any ranked battles to exploit the mechanic yet.
That's fair.
I have one little comment about the battle system. I saw someone tweet this out the day of the presents, and it's mentioning in one of the battle scenes, Rowlet is seen with 103 HP at level 12 when it normally has about 40-ish. So I'm wondering if they're revamping the HP system in some way.
It wouldn't surprise me if they adjusted the HP and just the stats in general to reflect something of a more traditional JRPG. But yeah, I didn't notice that in the trailer. That's cool.
I also did not notice that, but I did notice the discussion about it that Shield mentioned.
Yeah, I did bring it up in the Discord, but
Yeah, but yeah, my guess is that it is tweaked specifically for the mechanics of Legends, and I do think I mentioned when we discussed it in the Discord server for Bulbagarden, that it likely means that Legends is going to be a one-way trip for Pokemon into Pokemon Home, the same way that the Let's Go games were. It's likely that they will be coded specifically for that game, and if you send them to another game, they will be altered and can't come back, would be my guess.
yeah, I mean, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have any time capsule shenanigans here.
Or maybe we can just take a level 12 Rowlet with 130 hit points into Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and wreck everything.
Well, I mean, presumably...
There's still quad weak to ice.
if it's all calculated, like if the stats are just being recalculated in each game based on the IVs and EVs, then it might not be an issue anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out, but it's definitely something to keep in mind.
I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about the revamped battle system. I'm very interested in the fact that Pokemon attack humans.
Yes.
Yes,
Me
too.
I think they weren't brave enough to have humans fighting Pokemon, which is a bit of a pity because I'm imagining ridiculous things like I don't know. Gotta remember.
Punching a Rhydon and breaking your arm.
I was thinking more like a samurai fighting, like sword fighting with a Gallade or a Scyther.
But on the other hand,
Yeah.
one of the first things that was ever said to a player in a Pokemon game was it's dangerous to go into the tall grass alone. People ain't supposed to be fighting Pokemon. That's why we need to get Pokemon.
Oh, you could also talk about a certain other Sinnoh myth or one of the folk legends where you actually have a human going out and chopping Pokemon in half with a sword, not just for food, but for fun, for sport. And then all of a sudden, this mysterious presence comes in and basically reprimands him. The guy breaks the sword in half, and basically from that point on, I guess nobody killed Pokemon using swords.
Oh, the Veilstone myth.
That one, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, here it is. A young man, callow and foolish in innocence, came to own a sword. With it, he smote Pokemon, which gave sustenance with carefree abandon. Those not taken as food, he discarded with no afterthought. The following year, no Pokemon appeared. Riders grew bare. The young man, seeking the missing Pokemon, journeyed afar. Long did he search, and far and wide too, until one he did find. Asked he, why do you hide? To which the Pokemon replied, if you bear your sword to bring harm upon us with claws and fangs, we will exact a toll. From your kind we will take our toll, for it must be done. Done it must be to guard ourselves, and for it I apologize. To disguise, the young man shouted his dismay. In having found the sword I have lost so much. Gorged with power I grew blind to Pokemon being alive. I shall never fall savage again. This sword I denounce and forsake. I plead for forgiveness, for I was but a fool. So saying, the young man hurled the sword to the ground, snapping it. Seeing this, the Pokemon disappeared to a place beyond seeing. I would really like to live through that myth in game.
Well, here's the big question. That's the Veilstone's myth. Does Veilstone even exist at this point?
Well, Veilstone doesn't, but the locations do. Just because the
Maybe.
Well, yeah,
the story being
but
passed down in oral history in that area.
It is specifically called the Veilstone's myth, though, which sort of to me.
Maybe there is no Veilstone City, but maybe we'll have a mission at the Veilstone. You don't know.
That's true.
I mean, I don't know much of anything about this game other than what's in the trailers.
Yeah. Maybe the Veilstone is the rock he broke the sword on.
Or maybe the Veilstone is a meteor that fell down into that area, because Veilstone is noted as a place where meteors fall.
Hey, meteor fell on the sword and broke it.
No, he specifically broke the sword in half.
He was a meteor.
Once again, I ask, why can't we have both?
I'm confused.
There is an interesting question in the chat that I want to bring up because I've seen some speculation about it, and that is, do you think that Urshifu will be featured in Legends Arceus? Since the agile and strong styles seem very similar or reminiscent to single strike and rapid strike style of Urshifu. I've actually seen a little bit of speculation about this. Perhaps Hisui is the original region where Kubfu came from. I don't think it's particularly likely, but I think it's a nice thought. And I definitely see the similarities in theming and whatnot between the Kubfu line and the overall theme of the Hisui region.
I do think it would be
think
very
you
cool
could.
if they touched on that.
Yeah, I think it's more likely that you could see an overt, semi-overt reference rather than actually seeing the cut-through line, especially in the main plot of the story, given how centrally focused on Sinnoh or history this will be, and the Arceus legend and the legendary surrounding that. So it would be odd, I think, to have Urshifu appear in the main story. Don't rule it out, maybe post game.
I can see, of course, this is just speculation on my end, but I mean, I can see connections there being, we have the professor who's from Galar. Perhaps he does find a Kubfu and then takes it back with him to Galar. And maybe he's the original person who founded the Master Dojo.
I thought Mustard founded the Master Dojo.
Did he?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know for
'Cause
sure.
I don't think it's been around all that long.
Well,
I mean, Mustard owns that whole island, so
That's
it's
true.
also possible that because they definitely give the indication, or I saw an implication that the towers on the Isle of Armor are older than the dojo. It is possible that there could be some sort of link between Hisui and the Isle of Armor for Kubfu and the towers without referencing the dojo. Don't know.
I will just quickly say to HT 1040, the question as to whether do we actually have confirmation Professor Lavington is from Galar, and the straight answer is no. However, he does seem to be responsible for the Galarian wheezing on the front of the Team Galaxy building, and also in one of the trailers he seemed to say "jolly good." So I would take that as a pretty strong signal.
All English people say jolly good all the time.
I can vouch for that.
Jolly good old chap.
Jolly good.
I wonder if his name is Bruce.
No, that would be an Australian.
It might be Nigel Lavington.
Oh, don't go there.
Well, there's so much more to talk about these games, and a lot that we haven't necessarily touched on. But I do want to note the time. Is there any final thoughts we want to say about Legends before we start to wrap things up here? Final points to
Yes.
make, things to bring up.
Okay, so just the last thing I want to bring up. The Pokedex, despite being the first one, it seems like there's a lot of stuff to do. It almost feels like new Snap in that regard, where you need to get all these shots of the Pokemon doing certain things, and for Shinx, you have to catch both genders of it and all that kind of stuff. It feels like there's a lot to do, which I was worried about given the first trailer.
Yeah, you actually got to study the Pokemon ecology for once instead of catch it and write whatever catches your fancy.
actual research, sort of.
Here, let me find the shot. So,
Yeah. As much actual research as a Pokemon game could.
Yes, can actually get away with putting in the game.
Yeah, if they turn it into an actual research game, it would probably be dull as heck.
I mean, the one thing I'll note is that this is the first Pokemon game ever where you go into the tall grass to hide from the Pokemon.
That's true.
That's a good trivia fact.
That's true.
I will just quickly again respond to HT there in the chat.
Actually, sorry, no, I stand corrected. Unite. You go in the tall grass to hide from Pokemon as well.
The heck is Unite?
So I guess it'll be the second one.
In Unite, you go into tall grass to hide from players. It's not the same.
So just quickly respond to HT there. Lavington basically a made-up name. It appears to be a portmanteau of lavender, the flower, and potentially Blackiston, the name of the English.
Hey.
Yes.
What
Yes,
if
it has
Lavender
nothing to do
found-
with Lamingtons, the New Zealand dessert that Australians call our own.
The Lamington, they are very name. It does appear to be made up. It does appear to be a portmanteau of lavender and Blackiston.
What if Laventon is actually from Kanto and Lavender Town is named after him?
Ooh.
Ooh,
I don't think
That's a
he's
fun
from
tip for
Kanto, but I could see him moving through the various regions around here after the fact, and that area then being named for him.
Well,
That
he
seems
doesn't stick
somewhat
around
plausible.
Hisui because unlike the other two major people of note from the Galaxy team, literally nobody in Diamond, Pearl, Platinum looks like him in any way. So, you know,
Very
I haven't seen his
Cyrus
hair yet.
Okay.
Okay,
I have
technically
found that.
true, but
I have found that screenshot of the decks. So it's, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. This is for Shinx, because I think that's the only page they showed. But it's like number caught, number defeated, number you've defeated with ground type moves, times you've seen it use quick attack, times you've seen it use bite, number of forms you've registered, and number you've evolved are all there, and there's room for several more criteria. So for however many Pokemon are in this game, that's a lot to do if you want to do it all.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people say that this game is going to be absolute terror for completionists. And I would agree.
one thing we haven't really touched on at all was kind of like item crafting, where they're actually turning apricorns into Pokeballs, and you do that at base camp and you know, things like that. So you can get like the apricorn balls, you can get I guess bog standard whatever Pokeballs are in that day and age, which for some reason shoot out a full-on firework whenever you catch something.
well, yeah.
No.
No, because modern Pokeballs are mass produced and dull. These ones are handcrafted by a child who's in love with Pokemon. You gonna tell me that a child making their own Pokeballs wouldn't put a little firework maker into it if they had the ability to?
I would say mixing children and fireworks is never a good idea.
Yeah, well, we're
Yes,
already
but neither
mixing
is mixing
children.
children and weapons of mass destruction.
Exactly.
Okay, that's fair.
that
Fireworks
little
are tame
firework
compared to
on
that.
the little firework on the Pokeball is the least dangerous thing in the Hisui region.
I don't know. It could be dangerous to the region itself by starting a fire.
Eh,
It could.
that's what happened. That's what happened to Weird Ear.
You know what? I'd believe it.
I will quickly say, by way of wrap up for my own personal thoughts about the Pokemon Presents generally, actually. I had a number of small but not sort of deal breaker reservations about both Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Pokemon Legends. With respect to both games, those reservations have been put to bed almost completely. I am super hyped, super excited. The franchise is on a roll. And what I would say, treasure this period right now. We are in a great season for hype, for speculation, for rumors, for leaks, for all of that. We are at the high point of the cycle. Remember it 6 months from now when we have nothing else to go on other than the games we've just played.
And we're all bitterly disappointed. Sorry.
Don't jinx it.
No, Jinx was made in Gen 1.
I'm willing to bet that out of the 6 people in this conversation, at least 3 of us will greatly enjoy the new games.
I'm willing to bet that.
That's my bet.
I mean, I've never played a Sinnoh game, period, so Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are very high
Because
up there for me.
You are so young.
And you know what? I kind of want to start into my final thoughts just jumping off of what you just said, Shield, because I think this is just like the epitome of why I am excited for this period of Pokemon. And that's because we have 4 different distinct, unique gameplay styles and forms in this generation. You have, or in the Switch era, let's just put it that way. You've got, your very casual co-op introductory game in Let's Go. You have your standard, competitive, traditional new region in Sword and Shield. You have your remake of an older game brought up so that new audiences can appreciate it. Keep in mind, this remake is not for us old people, as much as it may seem like that. I think it's
It's
more
not?
towards I think it's much more towards the people who have not played Sinnoh.
Well, now I'm insulted.
And then you have this new story-driven, single-player focused adventure that is in a more modernized gameplay style in Legends Arceus. And overall, I would say that there's probably something for just about everyone to find in Pokemon right now. And I think that's great. And I think the Presents did a great job of showing us that. I think it did a great job showing us, why we should be interested in these games. And that's just where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah. For me, my final thoughts are going to be Sinnoh focused. Because as someone who has played Pokemon since Red and Blue came out, I do remember living through the time when everyone thought Pokemon was a fad. And I remember living through the time around Generation 3 when people thought the fad was coming to a close. And based on my experience with Pokemon, Generation 4, the Sinnoh games, the DS, just the everything about them was always for me that turning point, that moment when we realized Pokemon wasn't a fad, it was a thing. And it was a thing that was here to stay, and it has become a cultural phenomenon. And I think that's when it happened. I'm not one of those older players who think Sinnoh and Gen 4 are like the holy grail of Pokemon games, but I do think that they were very good. I think that they were very important to the history of Pokemon. And whether or not you end up liking the games, whether or not they have what you personally want in them, I think it's important to respect that. And I think the Pokemon Company is showing Sinnoh the respect it deserves for its place in Pokemon history. And I think they're showing its respect really well in these 2 upcoming games. That's my final thought.
Well said, Fitzy. Does anyone else have any more final thoughts before we wrap it up?
My final thought is game good. I will buy them. See you in November.
So, like Fitzy, I've been playing Pokemon since Red and Blue. And I will admit, and I admitted this in my Let's Play as well, I sort of stopped playing Pokemon for a while, right around Ruby and Sapphire. I think the last games that I had before I stopped playing was a copy of Sapphire version that I actually dug up and incorporated into my Platinum Let's Play. But for a very long time, I think it was right around when Black and White were coming out was when I was starting to get back into Pokemon, and I missed Gen 4 in its heyday. And a lot of the online functions, a lot of the multi-person stuff is something that I never got to experience in the moment. And again, that's something that I do regret. That's something that again, I've said that in my opinion, as of right now, for me, the golden age of Pokemon was Emerald through Black to White 2. And again, I missed playing most of those games when they first came out, just because I stopped playing Pokemon, and it just wasn't. I was busy in school. I was busy doing other things. I stopped, and having the Sinnoh region come back, having Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, um, come back. Obviously, Platinum has become my favorite game, but I love the Sinnoh region. I love the games. My biggest complaint about those games to date is how slow they are. And by slow, I mean when you're slogging through the snow. I mean when you're trying to save the game, right? There were a lot of technical limitations that they hadn't quite figured out on the DS yet at the time. And I get my second chance with Sinnoh now. I get to actually play it with other people. I get to play it, when it's in its prime. Hopefully, the game and the region and everything is faster. So I'm really, probably for the first time in a while, I'm actually looking forward to a new Pokemon game. Now, as far as Legends Arceus goes, I'm not quite as enamored with that. Like I said, if it is more towards the style of the wild area sort of gameplay, I'd get lost really easy. I'd probably end up jumping off cliffs without intending to jump off cliffs. And it doesn't really seem like something that I'd be good at playing. And I realize, that is very much a me thing, but I like the idea that they are trying to do more world building. I like the idea that they're building on the past, and that it's not another bog standard Pokemon game. I like the idea of doing the research and trying to create that first Pokedex. And it is something that I can at least say is interesting, even if I probably will not be playing it. And if I do, I'd probably just be recording it for some kind of Let's Fail series on Twitch or on YouTube, because I probably would fail miserably at it.
You,
But yeah,
you
no.
just know that the viewers are going to now demand you do that now that you've said it.
It would be pretty entertaining, in my opinion.
I still remember the first time I ever did any streaming for Bulbagarden. I was playing Heart Gold during our marathon several years ago, and I ended up somehow losing to Bugsy, even though I had chosen Cyndaquil as my starter.
Wow,
That is a big Let's Fail, and the bigger Let's Fail was when my father and sister showed up in the Twitch chat, and that is the last time I told either of them when I actually do this stuff.
See, if you had failed because you took Cyndaquil up against Miltank, that would have been one thing.
No. I failed against Bugsy, and I'm still mortified to this day.
I'm not sure ME should be participating in Bulbacast anymore, to be frank.
Well, that's certainly a thing, because I talk too much.
I think that your expertise and insight into Sinnoh in this cast has been fantastic.
Well, thank you.
Archaic, any last thoughts from you to just finish it off?
The one thing I'm concerned about, that I was concerned about with Legends Arceus from the beginning, was that just they're selling this as more of an open world. We already know, or I would say from what we have seen, that it is absolutely not an open world, that it is more along the lines of the Monster Hunter thing. I remember the disappointment I had when we saw that Sword and Shield weren't open worlds after they'd really hyped up the wild areas. And I worry that these, let's call them zones, in Legends Arceus will not be as expansive and as open as we would like it. I fear that they might end up being as constrained or more than the existing wild areas. I really hope that's not the case. but that would be my biggest fear. Because I think these games would really only work if they are much more expansive. Like, especially if we're going through and like trying to analyze these Pokemon in their natural habitats and yada yada yada. I mean, we've already done that with Snap this year, and I love Snap. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, if there's one thing that Snap did right on Switch, it's give me the same zones at different times of day so that it and with multiple routes through the zone, so it feels different every time I do it, even if it's minute differences. If this feels identical every single time I go to the same area to observe the Pokemon a bit more, that could get really dull really fast, especially if there's a lot of Pokemon that we need to collect all this information on, that we need to catch multiple times. I mean, we better not be grinding them up for candies with the amount that we're catching them. I don't think it's going to be as bad as Go there, but it seems like we're going to be catching most Pokemon a lot of times. And I don't know about you, but most times when I play Pokemon, I catch one of a species. And then unless it's a species I'm interested in training, I probably never touch it again except to get it up to enough of a level to evolve it for my decks.
So what you're saying is instead of something useful like candies, you just want to shove them in a box.
That actually brings up a good question, because I doubt there are computers that exist in Hisui, so what do we do with all the Pokemon we catch?
Yeah, especially if we're catching lots of them. I mean, and maybe this is tied to the dark secret of the plot or something. But, like, yeah, what happens to all of these Pokemon? Are we going to have, like, this free range area where we can observe all the Pokemon we've caught? I mean, that'd actually be pretty cool.
You know what? Free range is a brilliant way to describe the Pokemon, but for a different reason.
We could put them in a zone for safaris.
Oh, yeah.
Like a safari zone.
Ew. They don't even have one of those in Sinnoh. It's a great marsh.
We could put them in a great marsh.
Now,
We could put them
I would like to think this is closer to Professor Oak's lab, or like I should just say the Professor's labs in the anime, something more along those lines.
So what you're saying is we should open up a park for all of our new pals, like a pal park.
And on that note,
Didn't exist until during the story of Diamond and Pearl.
Anyway.
I was just saying, and on that note for the pun. But anyway, I think we are going to close out here. A couple of housekeeping things to note. First, I want to give a shout out to Snowy for recording the footage that you've been watching while we've been recording the podcast. Thanks to Archaic, Fitzy, Shield, Wyndon, and Emmy for joining me today on this cast. Thanks to HT and all the others in chat for giving us some questions to answer. And as always, if you want to discuss with us some more or just have any opinions, feel free to join our Discord server where we have constant discussion about all the games, anime, whatnot, or on our forums where there's more long-form discussion. And as always, also be sure to follow us on Twitter at Bulbagarden. I've been your host for this Bulbacast. I am TheCapsFan, and thank you very much, and have a good night, guys.
Bye.
Good morning.
Good night.